What's good, y'all? Riley Beats here, and today we're going to talk about chords, making chord progressions, and how to make your chord progressions better overall. If you could leave a like, comment, and subscribe, that'd be great for me, for you, for the community, and for the algorithm. Appreciate it. Thank you. So I got FL keys here just for the sake of the tutorial. We're just talking about chords, so we don't really need anything too crazy. We're going to be working in C major just because it's easy. It's all the white keys. A minor is similar, it's just all the white keys as well. So first thing we're going to talk about is building the triad. So the triad is just 3 basic notes in the chord. Pretty simple thing. So you can go into scale highlighter here by clicking this little triangle up here. A menu will pop up, you click view, and then you can click scale highlighting and you can pick whatever scale you want. To build the triad, you just have your root note. See the next note in the scale, skip that, go up, and you add a note there. See the next note in the scale, skip that, go up to the next note in the scale, and add a note there. So right here we have a C major chord. The difference between major chords and minor chords is pretty small. So here's the C major scale and here's the C minor scale. The only difference is that middle note being down 1 semitone. Getting into some slightly more advanced chord stuff, we have 7th chords. They seem a little intimidating at first, but they're pretty simple. It's pretty much just going up 1 note in the scale. So now here we have a C major 7th chord. And in comparison to just the C major chord, here's what it sounds like. So you can tell it adds a bit more of a neutral feel, which is very nice. Major chords typically sound happy and minor chords typically sound a little bit more sad, so you can balance that out. Building on to 7th chords, you have 9th chords. Again, it's kind of the same thing. Just go up 1 note in the scale, skip it, next note in the scale. You can do the same thing for 11th chords and pretty much anything after. Now we have suspended chords. So next we have a suspended chord, and again, they're pretty simple too. You have that middle note, and all you want to do is bring it up 1 note in the scale. Now we have a C sus major. You can also make this chord a 7th or a 9th or an 11th, etc. For diminished chords, this is where it gets a bit more advanced, but still pretty simple. You would have your middle note, your top note, and you just bring both those down 1 semitone. That makes it a diminished chord. Then we have augmented chords. So get your middle note, and then get your top note, and then bring that top note up 1 semitone to augment the chord. So those are just some basic different kinds of chords you can have. So now we're going to talk a bit about making chord progression. A lot of people ask me, how do you do it? It's pretty simple. You just want to listen to your root notes and hear where they go. So pretty much what you want to do is you have your first note, you listen to it. You have your 2nd root note, you have your 3rd root note, and do the same thing for the 4th. You want to make sure they sound good together and they flow from one to the next. Then from there you can just turn that into triads. And if you want, you can turn those into any of the chords we talked about earlier. At this point, it's important to note you can invert the chords. So inversion, it's a pretty cool musical thing you can do. You just take some of the notes, which I like to bring up my middle notes a lot. I like to invert them up, and you just pitch them up or down an octave. So you can do that, and that's an inversion. You can do this, that's an inversion. As long any of your notes, if you bring them up or down an octave, you're inverting the chord. And here's how that sounds. From there, it's really important to note that there's only 7 notes in the scale, so the timing of your chords is where you can get really creative with them. Some popular chord rhythms are similar to this, but that is a bit boring and a little repetitive. So here's another popular one I like to use. Here's how it sounds with a different rhythm. So really feel free to play around with the rhythm. Once you have a chord progression you're at least mildly happy with, feel free to move some of the notes around, find what fits best. You can add in extra notes. At the end of the day, if it sounds good, you probably made some kind of chord, you know? So for example, if I added the C here, that would make it a 7th chord. You can do that for all the chords. You can make them however you like. So now you have a bit more of a better chord progression. Things are looking a bit more clean. So now you have a chord progression. You're probably wondering how you can add a bit more movement to it, because right now it is a bit rhythmically bland. And one cool thing you can do is arpeggiation. It's great for a lot of things. So in FL, if you want to arpeggiate, you can just press Alt-A, or you can do it manually. I usually do it manually. When you press Alt-A, a little menu will pop up and you can have different patterns. So you have the flip, you have alternate, you have normal. These are just common arpeggiation patterns. That's the normal one. This is the alternate one. And here's the flipped one. If you're not happy with any of those, feel free to cut the chords up a bit and move them around. So I've cut up my chords a bit, moved some things around. Here's how it sounds. I've cut up some notes, feel free to move them around. So for example, I'm going to move this F around. I'm just going to change that note. So I just moved 2 notes around. I didn't do anything too crazy, but it's important to note this. I ended on the 5th note of the scale. A lot of common songs do that because it resolves the tension built throughout, and it also leads back into the 1, which is the initial root note. So this chord here, you can also end on the 4 for a bit more tension. It happens in songs like Hey Ya by Outkast. And here's how that all sounds. So finally, with chords, you got your basic chords. You got everything you need here for some pretty basic chords. Typically I like to copy the bass notes and bring those down an octave just to add some depth. You can change some of the, voice crack. You can change some of the bass notes up. You can even add some filler notes in the bass, which will really lead into the next chords. Typically with your bass notes, you'll want to include some note that's played in the chord just because it'll sound better and more concise. So now that I've included some notes in the bass, here's how it sounds. So this kind of steps away from chords a little bit, but you'll want to add some filler notes. And good rule to go by with filler notes, and mind you, there's no rules in music, so you don't have to follow this word for word. You can see some notes here, and you can see them, they're being a bit distant from other notes, so you can lead notes in. So having a note that's the next closest note in scale. So I already had a lot going on movement wise, so I didn't really add too many filler notes, but as you can see, this note here is just a jump from the A to the F, and this note here is just a jump from the C to that A, and it really glues the whole melody together. So yeah, that pretty much covers everything relating to chords that we're going to talk about today. Again, if you could leave a like, comment, or subscribe, I'd appreciate that greatly. It would help out the channel, also helps out in the algorithm. And again, thank you for watching. Peace.